Well, hello everybody. This is Patrick in the Dallas area, and here to talk about the LA400 um, control unit for the Liftmaster gate opener. And today we're gonna take a look at from a do-it-yourself perspective. The LA400 gate opener and the 1300 GS maglock we'll also be discussing together. There's a pretty much a lack of good do-it-yourself or DIY customer support that you'll be facing when you do this as a do-it-yourselfer. And I know that that's probably a little bit by design. They want the professionals, and I don't blame them. And the distribution channel to have some protection on what they do, and their stock and trade. However, this video isn't going to prevent anybody talk them into talk them into doing it on their own. This is probably by the time you get here, you've already bought it and you're installing it and maybe looking for a little additional assistance. I will say that just as in the intro, this is sort of caveat emptor. You didn't pay anything for this information. It's free, and I wish you the best, but I'm not a professional, and so don't I can't assume any liability, as I said, or as it said earlier. Um, there is the Liftmaster LA400 control board, and this is new as of um, new, at least what I have as of December 2019, and it is a newer generation, so it's got the look of it differs. So what you want to do, if your board doesn't look like this, then just make sure that the manual that you're looking on, the picture in that manual matches the manual that or matches the the look of your control board. Okay, so I want you, the first part that we want to point out here is that if you're going to use the lock, this is where you install the lock, the mag lock, and this is actually where you're going to get your power for it, and that's kind of the meat of this. Um, Doing this is a little bit confusing, but it's confusing for the following reasons. The LM400 and the maglock can be hooked up in many ways, so the instructions can be a little difficult to follow, and it's just not clear for your specific situation, especially the maglock. The maglock instructions don't take into consideration the available accessory power on the LA400, and if there is only one way to hook it up in the configuration, it may not be yours, but it's not clear in the documentation how exactly you might hook it up because there is more than one way. Hopefully, the lack of documentation is not to encourage you to call a pro. Um, Maybe they're just trying to, generically cover every situation. So let's go ahead and take a look now at the maglock schematic. Notice here there are two ways to configure this maglock. This is the 1300 GS. The one, this section on the left is 12 volts DC, and the section on the right is if your maglock is, a 24 DC configuration. This maglock can go either way. With the LA400 using the accessory power, we're using the 2400, or excuse me, the 24 volt side. The 24 volts is also rated at 250 milliamp or a quarter of an amp. The rating for the accessory power is a half an amp or 500 milliamps, so there's plenty there to drive the maglock, no problem. So these are confusing, right? These pictures, because it really doesn't show you a really clear way to hook the maglock up to the board. Okay, so I did that. I redrew it for you in this specific situation, and here it is. You have, let me make sure this is in the screen. Yeah, I think we are. So this is the wiring diagram for the maglock to the LA400 using the 24 volt DC from the accessory power. So here's your accessory power. Here's where the maglock section of the control board is on the LA400. So LA400 over here, maglock over here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the brown wire from the maglock 1300 GS, the brown wire, and you're going to hook it up to the normally closed NC position of the lock section on the control board. Now, that there's some kind of, I think, gaseous fuse there. I'm not sure exactly what that component is, but it looks like a gas um, protection, gaseous protection fuse of some sort. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. Maybe somebody can comment. But because it's installed there, you can just barely make out that NC. So if you're in the lock section, it's going to be, just look really close and put your magnifying glass on, you'll see the NC there. So that's where you want that brown wire from the maglock. Then let's go down to the yellow wire here. The yellow wire from the maglock will be connected down here in the accessory power on the on section, and you want to connect it to the plus terminal screw. Okay. Notice here there is an on, a positive and negative for the on, and there's a positive and negative for SW, which is switched accessory power. We want the on, so just ignore this for right now, the SW. So once again, yellow wire from the maglock goes to the positive side. The brown wire from the maglock goes to the normally closed position. This is not intuitive, so that's why I made this drawing. Then you want to do two other things. You want to cut a little piece of wire, use it as a jumper wire, and connect together the common of the lock itself, and on the other side of that wire, connect it to the negative of the accessory power. Okay, so that's all you do. Then finally, since you're running 24 volts, you need to go ahead and short together or connect together the blue wire and the purple wire from the maglock 1300 GS. You're not going to actually do anything with those wires other than tie them together. They don't go anywhere else. You can tie them together there at the control board, or you can tie them together anywhere along the line. I actually have mine tied together close to the maglocks to make sure I get a good connection, but you can easily just connect them there at the control board. So that's all you do. So now let's go ahead and go outside, and we'll pick it up from there as far as how does that look in practice. First, let me introduce you to Moro, the Boston Terrier. Moro, hey, what do you have to say to the peeps today? And of course, whenever I call Moro the jealous dog, who is the dog, the I love everybody dog, wants part of the action. Who can blame him? He's a great dog, and so is Moro. Moro's just a little bit more independent. Okay, so sorry for the distraction. That's the LA400. That's the opener, Liftmaster opener, and we've got the 1300 GS maglock. It is positioned differently than I think what you'll mostly see. Usually you'll see them, instead of this way like it is, they'll be oriented like that. Well, I picked that way for various reasons. Number one, because sometimes I like doing things the hard way. As it turned out, it was a little bit harder the tolerance is a little bit trickier to work with, but in the end, I like the fact that it gives me more room, and it is really strong. So really happy with it. Okay, so the maglock was a really kind of a pain because, as we talked about on the inside, the documentation was confusing, mostly because the 1300 GS is not designed just for the Liftmaster. It's designed for a lot of things. So the documentation is to support several different things. But as we talked about on the inside, here's the maglock section. Hard to read that normally closed. Very hard. I mean, you almost have to get just really, really close. The phone picks it, the video here, phone video picks it up pretty good. You can actually see that NC, normally closed NC to the right, just to the right of the lock. But that, I guess that's a fuse
that's blocking it. So maybe some kind of gas fuse, I'm not sure. And then of course is our accessory power. You want to, as we talked about, you want to choose the on. There's two ways to get power: the accessory, which is always on, and then your switched power, which is switched on. You'll want the on all the time available. And of course, you want to validate. I mean, the specs say that this power is 24 volt DC, and it's good for a half an amp or 500 milliamps. Since the maglock is only going to pull about 250 milliamps or quarter of an amp, then the accessory power is plenty capable of powering the maglock, no problem, at 24 volts. So we're good there. The confusing part, of course, was the fact that you're not having to install, another power adapter. And so, just as we discussed, coming off the 1300 GS, the brown wire coming from the maglock, it's kind of messy looking in here, and I guess I could clean it up, but this is the cable harness right here coming from the maglock. So the brown wire, literally, that comes from the maglock goes into the NC. Again, you can barely see it, but into the normally closed screw terminal there. You'll need a little bitty Phillips screwdriver to get that open. Then the other wire, the power wire that's coming from the maglock, is the yellow wire, and the yellow wire is going to actually not be. It's not going to tie where you think it is, and this was my first mistake, but it's coming to the accessory power on the positive side. Okay, positive side, yellow wire. So brown wire from the maglock, yellow wire from the maglock. Then you want another wire, just a short piece of wire that ties together the maglock common connection. That's the middle screw. So a wire that goes from here to here, which is the negative side of the accessory power, just like we showed in the diagram. That's how you wire that up. A couple other notes, and we'll show you how to. I'll show you how to set the thresholds here in a minute. I did. You also want to make sure when you do it yourself, and make sure that we don't always think about things. Sometimes we'll skip things. Don't skip this grounding. I put a ground wire from the unit here into this metal fence post to the ground, and I actually, it's optional, but I tapped it. I tapped the metal plate. You don't have to, but if you don't tap it, then you may be at risk of not getting the best connection. If you're not really good at tapping, throw up another YouTube, go buy a $10 tool, and you'll enjoy what you learn there. So you can either go through all the way with a big 1/4-inch bolt or something like that, make it look kind of ugly in my opinion, or you can just learn to do a tapping, use a tap tool to thread your bolt connection. Okay, and that gives you a really good. Now if you don't do that, then basically you've got DC 24 volts DC floating, and then anything that's on this board, and anything that comes near here, such as high static or even lightning, is just going to blow the board much quicker. Whereas you've got this whole fence here, this big metal fence, taking it to ground, taking a lot of the charge. And do make sure that so here's my ground wire, and the other, it's also connected to the board itself with this green wire. Make sure those are connected. That'll help. So to set this, basically what you're going to do, just like the directions say, you're going to push these two buttons, set open and set close at the same time, and then hold them closed until you hear beeps. Now it's ready for you to program. They're both blinking, see there? So set open means wherever the gate is positioned in the gate open position and wherever the gate is positioned in the gate closed position. Well, right now the gate is in closed position. And as a matter of fact, it's exactly where it needs to be, right? So since it's exactly where it needs to be, if it weren't, you would use these two buttons to control the gate to move the gate backwards or forward. Once you've got it set, then and since it's in the closed position, you push the set close button. So that sets that location for the close. And then now we want to open the gate, and when we get done opening the gate, we want to hit the set open button. Here's how I open it. Here's how I draw the control my direction. I'll hit this button, and we'll see that it's retracting or opening the gate. This is actually kind of slow because it's just designed on the when you're setting the open and the closed positions. It's actually slow on purpose. Okay, I think I've got it where I want it to be. Kind of cramped here. So now I want to hit the set open button because now it's in the open position, the gate is, and so I want it to return to this spot every time. So now I hit the set open. So we're good to go. If I make a mistake, or if I want to start over, then I would hit these two buttons. I would hold them down again until I hear the beeps, and then I would reset. You can start from any position. You can start with it open and hit the open button. And then you can finish with the close. Doesn't matter. You can go backwards and forwards until you get to the spot you need. No worries. Experiment with it and learn it a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and use the button, and it should close now. And when you get this maglock put in, it'll very sweetly, it's really gentle. I'm so impressed with how gentle this is. It's really sweet. And there it goes, it engaged. Perfect. Just perfect. Okay. So the only other thing to mention maybe is make sure your antenna's connected. If not, that radio will, it'll blow up on you. Well, not blow up, but it'll malfunction and you'll have to replace the board. This antenna is needed for your remote controls to work with it. So be sure before you start using it that you do set that. It does transmit, by the way, and I'll tell you the reason why I know that. It's not just a receiver, it's also a transmitter, because when you hook up the internet-based MyQ app, then obviously if it gives you its position, it has to be transmitting. So if you go to transmitting without that antenna, your transmitter is not going to work very long. Well, that's it. The only other, maybe a couple more hints, if you lose these screws like I did, make sure you get the little insulators that keep it waterproof. There's a little, on the little bolt, there's a little rubber insulator that keeps the water out. So make sure you can get them at the hardware store. So I know this was a bit long-winded, but these are just little things that I had to deal with, and hopefully it'll be helpful. One other thing I want to talk about is what happens when you lose power and then it's been long enough to where your battery's out too. If you're like me, your wife may not be happy with the fact that she cannot get the gate out and get gate open and get to work. What do? Well, there's two ways you can deal with that. You could, if you were tempted, you could just remove the hairpin there and pull that out. Well, the problem though is that the maglock is still going to be engaged, so you're still going to have to deal with the maglock. Well, it was good design by Liftmaster. By the way, I'm using duct tape here over the keyhole because I can't find the little cap that went on there, so I've got to order one. But this is designed such that if you lose power, then you put your key in here, like so, and you turn it. And once you turn it, you can actually move this lever here. You're going to move it 180 degrees. You see, when I did that, it immediately started beeping, which means it's now able to be manually retracted back and forth. It also means that it turned off the magnetic lock. So there you go, there's your answer. See? So the instructions to the wife, really easy. Just put the key in there and turn it. I did notice that if you put it back and turn the key, it does not re-engage the magnetic lock. And that's probably by design, because they probably figure you have to reset the limits anyway, because you see it's not, the lock is not engaged. So after you get back home or whatever, then you just need to reset everything. Once again, we're just going to hit these buttons, wait till they beep, and then go back and forth with the gate till we know where we need to go, and then hit set, open, and set, close. So that's the outdoor part of this. I hope it helps.